The Great Pyramid of Giza weighs 6 million tons. Every block is aligned within the width of a playing card. No blueprints, no iron tools, no power drills. For centuries, the question stayed the same. How do you move 2.5 tons of stone across desert sand every 3 minutes for 20 years straight? Tonight, we'll walk through the answer scientists finally locked down in 2014. An answer painted on a tomb wall almost 4,000 years ago. No aliens, no secret machines, just water, sledges, and national-scale planning. Stand at the base. 13 acres of stone rising 480 feet high, built from 2.3 million blocks. Most of those blocks came from the local limestone quarry, weighing about 2 tons apiece. But the granite for the king's chamber? That traveled 500 miles from Aswan. Each block weighed up to 80 tons, the size of a modern battle tank. Inside the pyramid, scrawled in red paint, ancient graffiti tells us how it was done. Crews of 40 men, hauling 1 block at a time. Do the math and the scale is insane. During the 4-month Nile flood season, when farmers could be drafted, they'd have to move 400 blocks a day. That's 1 every 36 minutes, daylight only, for 20 years. But speed meant nothing if the desert fought back. Drag a 2-ton block on a wooden sledge across dry sand, and the front edge digs a trench. Friction triples. The sled stops cold. Modern tests proved it. 20 college athletes couldn't budge 1.5 tons more than a few inches. Multiply that by 1 million trips, and the job becomes impossible. Unless the Egyptians knew a trick we didn't. Flashback to 1890. Archaeologists open Tomb 17 at Deir el-Bersha. On the wall, a painted scene shows 172 men hauling a colossal statue of the governor Jehuti-Hotep. At the front, one small figure pours water onto the sand. For over a century, Egyptologists labeled it a ritual, a symbolic blessing, libation. Nobody thought to test it. Then, in 2014, a team of physicists in Amsterdam finally did. They built a replica sledge, loaded it with limestone, and dragged it across desert sand. Dry run? Pulling force, brutal. The sled barely moved. But add just 2 liters of water per square meter, and suddenly the sled glided forward. Pulling force dropped by half. High-speed cameras revealed why. Damp sand locks together into stiff little plates. Instead of the runners digging in, the sled rides on a temporary road that rebuilds itself every step. Too little water? No effect. Too much? The runners stick. But at 2 to 5% moisture, the sweet spot, the sand behaves like solid ground. Exactly the amount one worker could sprinkle from a jar as the rope team hauled forward. That tomb painting wasn't ritual at all. It was an instruction manual. Now scale that trick up. The pyramid wasn't built on rolling dunes, but on a flat limestone plateau. The Egyptians graded a 20-meter-wide causeway, sloping gently from the quarry to the construction site. Along its edge, clay-lined channels carried Nile floodwater into catchment basins. Crews of water boys walked in shifts, refilling jars every 50 meters, keeping the track perfectly damp for the sledges. One team could manage 60 trips a day, hauling 120 tons, enough to keep the stonemasons above busy without pause. The desert didn't stop the Egyptians. They taught the desert to cooperate. Moving stone was only half the job. Feeding the workers was the other. Excavations of the workers' village show industrial-scale kitchens, bakeries, breweries, even coppersmithies. Bones reveal diets of 4,000 calories a day. Beef, mutton, fish, emmer bread, and beer thick as porridge. Inscriptions list 25,000 conscripts, split into 4 rotating gangs with names like the Friends of Khufu and the Drunkards of Minkaura. Each gang was broken into teams of 200, each with its own ledger. This was project management on papyrus. And the logistics stretched far beyond Giza. Copper chisels came from the Sinai, cedar sled runners from Byblos, basalt paving stones from Fayum, 50 miles away. Everything floated in by boat during the Nile flood, when the river itself delivered goods straight to the pyramid's harbor. The Egyptians took a natural disaster, the annual flood, and flipped it into a conveyor belt of stone, food, and tools. Getting stones to the site was one thing. Raising them hundreds of feet was another. A straight ramp up the entire pyramid would have required more material than the pyramid itself, and no trace of such a ramp has ever been found. Internal zigzag ramps solve some problems, but they leave impossible corners for 80-ton granite beams. The best fit theory today? A hybrid. A long external causeway to reach 1/3 height, and then an internal spiral ramp winding upward. Each turn shallow enough for men to lever a sled 1 foot at a time. Evidence backs it up. Post holes in the ascending passage show where wooden beams were swapped like railway sleepers, giving crews rest points between pulls. It wasn't brute force. It was clever engineering, refined step by step. If you think it was rough and ready, think again. The pyramid's base is level within 2 centimeters across 230 meters. Modern builders, with lasers, usually settle for 5. How did they do it? Likely by flooding the bedrock with water and cutting posts to the same waterline, a low-tech laser level. The facing stones are joined so tightly you can't slip a credit card between them. Just 0.5 millimeter of tolerance. And on hidden surfaces, workers left casual red ochre marks. This side up. Team 12. Quality control graffiti that survives to this day. But what about the monster granite beams for the king's chamber? They were too long and too heavy to navigate spiral ramps. The solution? Haul them up the pyramid's outer face. Builders left a notch in the masonry near the chamber's floor. The beams were dragged into place, slid sideways through the gap. Then the notch was sealed with fill stones. Invisible from outside, only detectable today by microgravity scans. A 4,500-year-old architectural sleight of hand. Water wasn't just a hauling trick. Damp sand kept dust storms down, preventing days of work from being lost. It created stable paths that cut injuries. Broken ankles could stop a project faster than broken ropes. And it let supply sledges carrying tools and grain move at double speed, tightening the entire logistics chain. The Bucket Brigade was more than symbolism. It was the hidden nervous system of the project. So, could it all really be done in just 2 decades? Radiocarbon dating of reed matting in the mortar says yes, 2580 to 2560 BCE. 20 years, plus or minus 2. Animal bone counts show slaughter peaked in the flood months, the exact time when labor and transport capacity were highest. Copper tool wear, sled cycles, food intake, every metric lines up with one conclusion. The schedule was brutal, but achievable. With water, sledges, and organization, the impossible became possible. When the capstone was set, the causeways were dismantled, the basins silted, and the harbor retreated back to the Nile. Within a generation, the trick was common knowledge. Middle Kingdom tombs show smaller statues hauled the same way, always with a water bearer out front. By the New Kingdom, iron tools and animal-powered capstans replaced mass hauling, and the wet sand technique faded from construction into art. The knowledge wasn't lost, it just became too ordinary to record. When the 2014 experiment went public, it didn't change physics, it changed us. For centuries, we assumed 2 extremes, either brute slaves or alien magic. Both were arrogance in disguise. The truth was simpler, smarter. A guy with a bucket, standing in the desert, teaching sand how to behave like stone. Today, road crews still spray water before laying asphalt. The method endures, not as mystery, but as engineering. The pyramid is not an enigma. It's a mirror. A reminder of what humans can achieve. Not with miracles, but with persistence, organization, and 20 years of steady pay in bread and beer. From above, the Great Pyramid still casts its shadow across the Nile Valley. The river glints. The desert wind shifts the same grains of sand those workers once mastered. And the monument they left behind still whispers the same lesson. We don't need magic. We need patience, planning, and each other.